And I think we're live. Hello, my name is Rob, and welcome to Performance Check. Today is something a little bit different. I'm going to attempt to stream making a dungeon map using the software Dungeondraft. It is a tool that I have used pretty much exclusively to make the maps of my current D&D campaign that is on online, and it's it's an irreplaceable resource for me now, actually, for the kind of game that I want to run currently using Roll20. This is easily the best tool that I've encountered to facilitate the creation of dungeons quickly, effectively, and uniquely. You can pretty much make whatever dungeon that springs to mind using this bit of kit. As you can tell from the screen, Dungeondraft, created by Megasploot, the creators of not only Dungeondraft but Wonderdraft as well. Wonderdraft, I've spoken about on the channel before, is a map making software. So you make your vast fantasy maps on that. If you imagine your Middle Earth, your Song of Ice and Fire, Westeros maps, you want to sort of try and emulate that kind of style of map, that's what you use. If you want to use dungeon crawling, grid-based maps, Dungeondraft is for you. Now, the vanilla game, I don't even know how much it is, but I know lately you can... I'd say lately. Recently it was on the Humble bundle, but I don't know if it is there anymore, to be honest with you. But it isn't very expensive, and for how much use I've got out of it, yeah, it's a brilliant bit of kit. I'm not being sponsored by Dungeondraft. I'm just speaking from someone who has used it, and I thought it'd be a neat thing to do, given that we're not actually running the game today. For those of you who do check in every week to see how the strangers get on in the D&D campaign, well, we'll be back doing that next week. Something came up and we had to postpone, sadly. But I like the idea of trying my best to keeping the Monday night as sort of like something that I will do for Performance Check, either on Twitch or on YouTube. So this will probably end up on YouTube afterwards. But yeah, without further ado, let's just jump into it. As a warning as well, and for people who are familiar with my exploits on this channel, sometimes I do run into technical hitches, and the last time I had like a full, fairly devastating technical hitch, it was actually using the sister program of this Wonderdraft, and I believe I was actually trying to stream it at the time. So we'll see how we go. We will see how we get on with this bit of software. It isn't particularly cumbersome on the CPU. It's just something, I don't know what it is. It's just something about my laptop, basically, and everyone knows that my laptop is awful. I have an unforgettable opportunity that has arrived in the form of a promotional... I don't know what that is. Thanks for dropping by, whoever you are. Thanks for leaving a message, regardless. So yeah, we're gonna do a map, and we're going to see if we can create a dungeon map from start to finish on this stream. We'll see how it goes. I do lose many hours into Dungeondraft just because I get started and I like tweaking and I like to make things as perfect as they can possibly be. And sometimes what I'll do is I will use Dungeondraft for the skeleton of the dungeon, and then I will continue to dress the dungeon with items, chest, doors, dynamic lighting, all inside Roll20, which is something that I could do another stream about if there was interest. Because I've been using Roll20 since the pandemic. I started using it with my friends to play the odd game, and from there it kind of became the primary method of us playing with our home group. And we didn't really get to play at all, ever, until that happened. So always grateful for running into those cool bits of software. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. So as you can see, Dungeondraft, this is going to be like for like a potentially a beginner's thing. I'm just going to go over like the general tools. So if you are already familiar with Dungeondraft, maybe you can drop in your own tips and hints and tricks for newcomers to the software that might help them help people out. Because it's a great bit of kit. So anyway, we're going to begin by naturally hitting new. And we decide our map size. Now I usually go for like if I'm just going for like a standard size map for a dungeon, I usually go for between 25 to 30. I find it's actually quite a decent size to include like a moderate sized dungeon. I have gone to like over 100 tiles in times past. There was a campaign that I ran before the one I'm running currently, where the players began investigating the long deserted city of Magmavalva, which was a massive metropolis that was built inside and was powered by a volcano. And for that, I use like a massive over 100 tile map. But for what we're going to do today, I think 30 gives us room to play with, room to be dangerous. So let's go with that. That's taking longer than usual. I'm trying not to be paranoid. I'm definitely trying not to be paranoid. Let's just hope that it's behaving. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy map. But for that one, then I wasn't using Dungeondraft. What I was actually doing was I was getting effectively dungeon tiles and placing them into Roll20 and sort of like doing it all in Roll20. But this makes it pretty good. Oh, there was a... I wonder how far we'll get in this stream. If I do vanish, I do apologise. This is an experiment more than anything. I have been saying it for years, but soon will be the time that I will enjoy a vast upgrade to the stuff that I use. It was lately it was either a new laptop or a new car, and I went for the car. So the next will be the laptop. So anyway, as you can see, big blank surface for us to use, 30 by 30 squares. Plenty of room to be dangerous in. So we're going to go through the tools, and then depending on how well this goes, we will, we'll see how far we get. So once you've loaded this up, you can see that there are a number of tools on the side here. Design is effectively for if you just want to make a building. And walls, self-explanatory. Portals for doors. The cave brush, which we'll talk about. The roof tool to put deletable roofs onto that. And deletable roofs, then you can sort of have you can just basically do the outside of a structure and then the inside of a structure as well. And that's how you do with a roof. We have Never Sleep 312. Good to see you. Can we see something suitable for a tactical session? Interested to see maybe a 2-story building or something with a basement. That's a really good call, actually. You'll actually see here, and thanks for stopping by, Never Sleep. Please, if you do drop by, feel free to drop a question in here. I'll do my best to answer it about the software, or indeed anything about the games in general that I run. You'll notice here at the bottom the controls for, or the options for your grid and things like that. So you can turn the grid off and on. You can do go on lighting, which we will go into at another time. Probably won't be this one, because the lighting is a whole other feature. There are still some features that I'm not familiar with as well. Like, what does that mean? Oh, I've just realised that isn't visible on the screen. Let's see if I can make that visible. Because you're going to have to take my word for it at the moment that at the bottom there is indeed a... Oh, God, what's gone on with this? What has gone on with this? How do I make that show? Let's see. If I move that up to there, and then I can scroll down maybe. That hasn't gone well. Let's bring Dungeondraft in like that. There we go. Almost there. Okay, so you're going to have to forgive me because that's entirely ruined the the overlay. Not that it was like an amazing overlay to begin with, but there we are. I might switch that back for when we return and we're not using this, because I'm only showing this very briefly. So the whole thing with 2-story buildings and multiple story buildings is really quite interesting, because you have this feature here, which is something you can now see, and this is the layers effectively. Now, if we wanted to have different layers, this is where you select it. I'm just going to see if I can find where it is. So yeah, if you go onto settings here, you have to forgive me if I sort of meander with my explanations as well, but I'm having to talk my way through it. You'll see map settings, but you also see level settings. And here you effectively create, and it will basically use the same features and the same details that are on this map, the first map. So I'll show you. We'll get there, in fact, because we'll talk about building it, but effectively you can copy what's on one layer to the next, so you can get like the rough outline of the building and clone that onto your next layer, but then put entirely different interior in the one above and below, and then you access it by selecting which level you're on. It'll make sense when you see it. But before we build a building, we need to build the landscape. So the landscape that it's going to be set in, I think we will just go for a building first of all, because that's the simplest way to show off this the details of this software. So we've gone onto the terrain brush, which is actually on the second page, which is all about terrain. Okay, and this is pretty great because it's quite a lot like a lot of art programs. You just change the size of the brush to something completely gargantuan, and you can change the intensity to how much you have to press in to make it fill up. So that's gravel, which is quite ugly looking, if you'll pardon my opinion. I think it's pretty grim. I usually use that sort of thing for pathways and to accent areas around the dungeon that I want outlining in some way. Because I find that weirdly, making dungeons like this kind of like, yeah, it kind of falls into the rules of not that I am a graphic designer by any stretch, but it falls into the principles of like how to draw the eye to certain things. Yeah, we'll see. Right, so anyway, we want to change the terrain, and I don't want any of these terrains. We've got dirt, which is sort of that, which is the default that you have at the start. Gravel, we got sand, snow. You can hit fill, and you can just immediately fill it with whatever terrain you want. But we don't want any of those. We want something else. So I'm going to select, and you can unlock more slots for different terrain things. So there you go, if you want like more variety. But for now, we just want these 4. Keep it simple. So we select the symbol here on the side that allows us to change the terrain, and you can unlock different terrain options by getting different assets. There is a vibrant community that produces assets which you can import, which I will probably do an entirely different video on. It's probably why my Dungeondraft is running a bit slower anyways, because it has extra assets, which does, I will say, affect the how this runs, but also, again, my laptop being a piece of poo. So let's do something fun. Let's go in the sand. So I just hit sand, and because that fill thing is there, it's automatically filled the area with sand. So that's a pretty great place to start, and it's quite bright as well. There are certain, like I say, there are certain terrains that are a bit darker, and yeah, you want to be careful with those, is all I'll say. But anyway, we'll go with that. So we've chosen our terrain. Next in this tab is a water brush, which is pretty great. And oddly enough, the water actually remains animated whilst you're in Dungeondraft. So if you were wanting to run straight from Dungeondraft, you will find that if you, say, draw a river like that, for instance, like, I don't know if you can tell, but unless I've just been going insane this whole time. Okay, Dungeondraft, call me a liar. Right, I swear that the water moves and has moved on many occasions, and now it isn't. Oh yeah, at the top it sort of is. I don't know if you're able to tell that on the stream, I'm not sure. Anyway, look, that's for if you want to include any bodies of water in your dungeon. Which you may do, but for now we're going to get rid of that. We will come back to that, but just to show you the initial inclusion of water. Now, erasing things. You have multiple ways of erasing things in Dungeondraft, but the really handy thing is because it's using multiple different tools with multiple different hotkeys, which makes it sound really complex. I promise you it isn't. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. And the really handy thing is whatever you need to know about the hotkeys for whatever tool you're using. Let me see if I can just move, because once again, you can't actually fully see it on the way Dungeondraft is being portrayed here. There we go. So you'll see right at the bottom there, beneath where my camera is, you'll see that for the water tool, you actually need to hold Alt, and then that'll turn the cursor into an eraser rather than a brush. Call me a liar once again. I said, there we go. It's gone blue. There we go. That's the key. It goes blue, and then you can erase the water. So anyway, that's that. So that's all that then. What else have we got? So we have lighting here once again, the levels and the map settings that I told you about before. You can trace an image, so you, like Wonderdraft, you can actually import an existing file and sort of have it as an overlay on your settings here, so you can trace the exact shape of an already existing image. Say, for instance, you've got a old school dungeon from a copy of Dragon magazine from back in the day, and you want to put it into Dungeondraft and modernize it or make your own changes. All you need to do is make sure that you have either a JPEG or a PNG of that, or whatever photo, whatever. You can import it into this, and then you'll be able to trace it, which I'll probably go over another time. There's a text tool as well if you want to write on it. And yeah, but anyway, all that said and done, we're going to start by making a building. So we click on the building tool, and these are just the default options, really. So you can see that you can choose your wall down here and your floor. Now we're in the desert. I'm going to say let's just keep it basic for now. So let's choose like a sort of like a cobble wall here. And the floor will be smart wood, which is the go-to. Now you remember on these tools here I was saying about the there's a snap here, which is next to grid. So that allows you, if you want, you can see, hopefully you can see, that whenever I move my mouse, it will just snap to the next available square. so you don't have to like awkwardly line it up to make sure you're in the right place. However, if you do want to go freehand, you can always deselect snap, and then you can sort of just drop that wall anywhere. But as you can see, you sort of can click and drag, and then whatever shape you make, ka-chow, with the wall you selected and the floor you selected, that will now appear on the grid. Okay, but I'm going to undo that because it looks messy, because snap was off. So hit undo at the top. Turn snap back on. Now we want to make the most of the map size, and the best thing to do is, generally speaking, we work out where the players are going to be coming from, where the player characters are going to be coming from. I reckon we say that the entrance to this dungeon is going to be in the bottom left. So let's start there. Usually I like to leave a square or so, maybe two, from the edge. Because then if I need extra room for stuff, then I know I have it if I come up with a bit of a flight of fancy. Because usually, to be honest with you, I don't in deep plan unless I work out the function of the dungeon. And then sort of go from there. And I don't really know what the function of this dungeon is going to be. Neversleep said that they'd like to see a two-story building, which we can definitely attempt in the time that we have today. Whether we get to the other story, maybe that'll be a second stream. But we're in the desert. What is the purpose of this dungeon? I don't know if anyone's actually still watching. I've purposely made sure that I didn't have anything really open on my laptop, just to give Dungeondraft as good a shot as any of staying alive. But if there is anyone out there, then I would very much love to hear your suggestions on what this dungeon should be in the middle of the desert. Is it a tomb? It's usually a tomb. If it's in the desert, maybe a mummy lives there. Or doesn't live there. Let's see. You know what? That's as good as any. We're going to make this a place of... yeah, we're going to make this like an undead... like an unearthed crypt that has been recently discovered, because the sands around it have recently been blown away to unearth like the entrance to this place. So it hasn't been seen in hundreds and hundreds of years, and now the sands around this place have shifted, and an entrance has appeared. So because of that, instead of it being a wooden floor, we're going to go with sort of like a stone floor, and we'll go with that kind of panel flooring, what we're talking about, paved flooring there. So if I once again show you, this time with snap on, if I draw that, kajow, we've got ourselves a neat little entrance hall. Now, very good to have in your mind that a player character token, at least the way that we've got it set up in Roll20, takes up 1 square. So if you want things to be symmetrical, then usually you've got to make sure that you have a central square and then an even amount of squares on either side. So that usually means we're talking with an odd number of tiles rather than an even number, if that makes any sense at all. I am not mathematically minded in the slightest. I hope you understand what I mean. Effectively, it means that one singular square is going to end up in the centre there. Okay? So that is going to be the entrance to our dungeon. Now, we're looking at the flooring and the walls here. And I tell you what, they kind of look a little bit like normal Western European cobble wall, which is a little out of place in a desert, to be honest. So what we're going to do is we're going to make that exact same shape, and we're going to do this once again. We're going to delete once again by holding Alt, but this time, instead of drawing, we drag the shape and then let go. Bob's your uncle. It's vanished. I said Bob's your uncle. Don't know why I said that. We want to make this look a little more desert-like, so instead we're going to select, first of all, the floor, and we're going to change the colour of the floor that we're selecting. This is the single most easiest way to diversify the tools that you use in Dungeondraft. Because while it doesn't look like you have much choice of floor and wall, you will find that when you start changing the colours and tweaking the shadows and the lighting, everything around it, how you dress it in Roll20 or Foundry or whatever else you're using, you will find that that's where the identity of the dungeon begins to take place, at least in the art style. So we're in the desert. Let's say we're going to go for sort of like a sandstone wall. So rather than a cobble wall, it's a sandstone wall now. We're going to find a roughly sandstone colour. I think actually we can afford to go a little darker. So we're going more into the oranges than the yellows. We don't want it to be like too distracting. We need to make it look like it's been there a while. So we go like really quite dark, almost to like almost into the reds, I'm going to say. And then once you've decided that the colour that you like is acceptable, you can then hit accept. And then we do the same for the floor. So we want the floor to be offset slightly by the orange wall. We can go for quite a pale kind of almost a whitish kind of sand perhaps. To denote the ghoulish nature of this place, how it's been deprived of sunlight, everything's gone quite grey perhaps, so we don't really need to do that, so let's go into here, into the yellows let's say, and then we slowly start moving into the grey until we get sort of like a grim thing, and then best case scenario for everything, or best practice to do with Dungeondraft is just to give it a try, just see what it looks like. So we're going to go from here. And we did a 5. Well, let's do a 5x5 entry hall. Wow, see, that was pretty spot on first time. So we've got sort of like the sand. I just realised I mixed it up the wrong way. So, so actually, the stone on the ground has gone a kind of a sandstony colour, and the walls are kind of a lighter. But you know what? I actually quite like that. I think we're going to stick with that. Yes, so the colour next to floor, colour next to wall there. Oh, you can't see because my camera's in the way, I've just realised. Well, you'll just have to trust me on that. Let's see if I can sort this out. Maybe I can... There's all this unused space over here. Let's do that, shall we? That's better, isn't it? If I whack that over there... Yeah, you'll have to forgive the rough and ready nature of this. As you're probably aware, I'm not super used to doing this. There we go. You'll be able to see most of the tools I use like that. So there we go. We've got our entrance hall. But how can an entrance hall be an entrance hall if it ain't got an entrance? That is where the portal tool comes in. So we click on our portal tool. Now, because I use Roll20, I don't ever really use the doors or the windows in Dungeondraft at all. And the reason being is because I use dynamic lighting in Roll20, which means that I can put invisible walls between the various sections of the dungeon, so that when the players reach that and open the door, I can then delete that wall and then they are granted vision to what's beyond that. However, it always looks really messy if you, on the map, have got a door that's just painted onto there, because they can say, oh, we opened that door and it's not there. It's not the end of the world, but it doesn't, it doesn't look great. So that's what I've been doing. Also, a great feature that's come into Roll20, at least in my mind, it's been quite recent, is the fact that they've actually now finally developed a tool for doors to work with dynamic lighting, so you can just drop them into the dynamic lighting now and you don't have to fiddle with them as much. And the best thing of all, players can interact with the doors by clicking on it from their screen, so I don't really have to do that anymore, which saves a significant amount of time for me during a session. So instead of including a door, because I will probably use this map in Roll20 at some point to demonstrate the next stage, as it were, I've selected this cross here, which effectively effectively means it's going to be just like a blank space or whatever. And I'm not sure it's whether it's that clear because it's yellow stone, so maybe I should change it actually because of the colour. Maybe it's a good shout to change the colour of the walls now, because that's quite difficult to see, and that will be a pain in the arse. Forgive my terminology, but it will. So instead, we're going to change the colour of the walls slightly. We're going to do that. I'm just on the wall tool at the moment. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start from the start. There we go. I am a pro, can't you tell? And I am going to change that back to the other one that I was using. So we're going to get that yellowish sort of colour again. What did it look like? There we go. There we go. So let's try that one more time, shall we? So 5 by 5. There we go. That looks cool, doesn't it? I like that very much. Then, as I said, we go on the portal tool, and then I click that, and then what it does is that it rather cleverly just shapes that bit into a cool looking door. So it sort of bookends the wall sections there and there. You can see it automatically sort of like layers the corners in as well, which is quite nice. So it actually looks architecturally sound. It isn't just an asset bunched into another asset. It actually molds it into a fairly realistic looking structure. So there we are. We've got our structure. Now that's the entrance hall, and I think because we've decided it's going to be a crypt, I like to try and vary obviously the shapes of the structure as we move through. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and draw hopefully some interesting looking corridors and stuff. Make sure that I'm on the right tool. So we're on the building tool once again. Of course, if you want to make a corridor, this is a great thing as well. It kind of naturally blends with it. So if I want to make a corridor that leads from this entrance hall and it goes out, I can just draw the shape that I want, and it will automatically mold to the correct shape that fits. Now, I find you have to be quite careful with very narrow corridors like this, because when you come to dress the dungeon and when you come to run encounters in it and so on, while it is fun to have that kind of narrow corridor for a trap or a desperate encounter where they have to fight in single file, a lot of the time it can get a little messy. So I think use it sparingly is something that I've decided, just in terms of the aesthetics of the map. I don't mean the actual idea of the session that you're running, because obviously that should come first. If you really visualize that you want your players to be stuck in a corridor like that, by all means. But I'm just letting you know that it becomes crowded in a visual sense if you're trying to make it look pretty, put it that way. So anyway, that's the tool that allows us to make these different shapes. So I think we're going to just go ahead and we're going to try and get like a rough layout of the dungeon. I can't remember where it originated from. It might have been Sly Flourish. It might have been from somewhere else. But there's the general rule that a five room dungeon is like a general rule for like just a basic dungeon to explore like in one session, maybe less, depending obviously. We have Just Joseph in the chat, first time. Thanks for joining us. Says, damn, that's pretty cool. But hi, what's up? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. We are enjoying looking at Dungeondraft. And we are currently building a crypt in a desert, if you could not tell by the beautiful sandstone aesthetic that we have created. So anyway, I'm going to make this corridor a bit larger, and once again, it's just a case of you drawing the shape you want and letting go, and then it will automatically generate the right shape for you. So now the entrance hall kind of goes off into this direction, which is pretty great. And let's think. We've got a tomb. We've got the entrance hall. So perhaps this used to be a place where those that wanted to say prayers to their fallen warriors or to leave offerings for those that departed could come in the times of old. So this actually could be a fairly well-used part of the dungeon where offerings could have been left. And you can have items that can begin telling a story. And this is something that is really important about creating a dungeon. It's about what's the story of the dungeon. As we've already established, it is a tomb, which is one of the easiest go-to things for a dungeon to be. I will grant you, but it's for the purposes of the stream. So we know the purpose is to keep the dead. We know, however, that the second purpose is for people to come and to revere the dead, to speak with the dead. I'm thinking of, imagine the crypts below Winterfell in Game of Thrones, how the Starks speak with the stone statues of long fallen Starks, and they sort of like go there to pray and seek guidance and to be alone and to that sort of thing. So there's sort of like a secondary use for it almost. So what we'll do then, because of that, we will make this quite a long corridor. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got 5x5 entrance hall. The corridor goes another 5. Let's stretch that to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really handy that you've got that little measurement tool. I don't know if you can see that properly. Maybe if I can zoom in. Yep, so if I zoom in, just by holding control and wheeling up and down on the mouse wheel, you can zoom in closer to what you're making. So 3x5. So it lets you know how far you're going. So you've got this really long corridor now. And then what we can do is we can then start making separate corridors that peel off. Should we do one there? Is that a bit close? Yeah, it's probably a bit close. So let's do one there. We'll get rid of this one here. Again, holding Alt till your cursor goes blue and dragging the same shape over it, it gets rid of it. So that's 1, 2 up, and this will be 1, 2 down. There we go. So we've kind of got like an evenly spaced position there for 2 corridors to go off in that direction. And then a 3x3 section there, 3x3 section there. And what we will do is later on in the stream, I will show you how we begin populating the dungeon with decorations and the like. So I imagine that maybe we take that inspiration from Winterfell and we decide on maybe statues in there or a sundial because we're in the desert or something that denotes somewhere where people can come and pray or leave offerings and the like, which is quite a nice source of loot for your players as well. As we're in a dungeon crawl, always nice to come across some loot. So they'll be able to find that. And then, as I mentioned before, later on in Roll20, we'll actually be able to put doors over that as well. So there's that added tension of what's behind that door. It's a running joke in quite a lot of, particularly in D&D, which is heavily dungeon based. There is sort of the running joke of doors being ever so challenging, like and players overthinking what's behind doors. Well, I think that's perfectly valid because anything could be behind a door. So, for that alone, it's a good thing to include. So anyway, we've created the entrance hall and we've got 2 offering chambers that we'll fill with statues. And then I think this is probably the point where the usual crowd probably stop. And there's probably going to be some kind of locked door there, I imagine, to prevent grave robbers just wandering in. So that could perhaps be a challenge as well. And you note that as we're building the dungeon, we're imagining what it would be like to walk through it. We're imagining as a dungeon master or as a game master what we want to see when we go through there. In a sense, if you want to be artistic about it, we are discovering what's inside this dungeon and then filling in the blanks. So maybe there is something there, that a mechanism that keeps the door locked. Maybe it's a riddle door that you have to speak to and give the right answer. Perhaps the door will only open if you possess the family signet ring of the house of these desert dwellers that are now buried here. So that's probably where public access ends, or public access would have ended before the sands covered this area. If there is anyone in the chat, perhaps you could come up with a cool house of a fantasy feudal house that lived in the desert. You can give me their name, and we will include that in this map somewhere. If you want, don't worry if not, and I'll do it. So presuming the players get through this this section and they work out how to unlock this door, well, I know it was requested that we do different floors, but there is a way of doing levels within just the one map, and that's what we're going to explore now. So once again, we're going to make a portal, and we'll do it there. So it's right slap bang in the middle. So that's the way through, and we will, using Roll20, put a locked door there. And then I think maybe a sharp turn is in order. I think so. Oh, right. So just as a point as well, if you just want the terrain and the wall and not the flooring, then you just select the wall tool. I should have said that before because I keep clicking on it by accident. I'll show you that really quickly. So you can just effectively draw in lines with that then. So I can just do that, that, that. And that's how you get quite an effective looking ruin, actually. So if we take the portal tool again, you can actually sort of like start making ruinous holes in the sides of it and the like. And then again, when we come to the dressing stage, we will be able to put rubble around that and stuff to make it look like all of this is collapsed and stuff. But yeah, that's just the wall tool. And again, holding the Alt key. In fact, actually, sometimes better to go on the building tool there and do that. Much easier to do that. Or will it let me? Okay, you know how I said that there are multiple ways of deleting things in Dungeondraft? Well, this is another one. So it's actually good because we've come to using this tool, which is the selection tool, which is very much like your image manipulation software stuff. Photoshop, GIMP and the like. Just allows you to select individual things. It's going to call me a liar again, isn't it? No, it did. There we go. So I managed to highlight it there. It was actually quite difficult to see because of the grid color. But effectively, yeah, you're able to select it. The line in the middle of the wall goes blue, and then that means you can then delete it. Also on the selection tool, you will see as well that you can change between the filters and the layers that you can add onto the map, which is sort of advanced stuff that we shall not discuss here, that I shall not utter here. Save often. As far as I'm aware, there is I imagine there's probably an autosave function. But I don't have that selected, so I'm going to save. I have to come up with a name for it, so I'll just call it Desert Dungeon. There we go. So we've saved that as the Desert Dungeon. Great stuff. So anyway, back to the building of this dungeon. So we're going to select the building tool once again, and we're going to make a sharp turn. So we're going to go 3 forward, which once again makes generates the narrow corridor, and then we'll go 3 to the right. So it juts off in that direction. Okay. And I think... what could be here? Okay, so we discussed about how the... we discussed how this dungeon was once covered in sand. It's in the middle of the desert and it's only recently been unearthed. Which could imply that serious damage was done to the structure at some point. So perhaps we go from it being an entirely man-made structure to having bits of catacomb or cave blending into it. Now, I'm hesitant to do this because it becomes much harder, but come on, let's try and make a really cool dungeon, so I'm going to give it a go. We're going to try and make it look like that this corridor actually opens up to another... We'll begin by making another chamber. This one is going to be slightly wider than the last, so let's go... See, always give yourself room between the walls as well. See, I 1 square between the wall is absolutely fine, but like if you go up to it like that, then that will then merge. Unless you tell it not to, which is a whole other thing, which I'll go into another time. So I'll do another 5x5 chamber. There we go. But now what I think I'll do, or I wonder. See, there's a lot of thinking out loud for this, because you kind of got, like I say, you're building it as you go. You're kind of trying to think about it. It's like a puzzle it's like a logic puzzle almost. Maybe we can make the corner. We can vanish the corner, perhaps. So if I get the portal tool again. And I select here and here, here and here. We're opening up that corner there. And now we move to the cave brush. Now the cave brush is effectively the same as the building settings, only it's more of a drawing tool rather than like a design tool, like a you can freehand it, and you have to freehand it a lot more with the cave brush. So what am I looking at? We're looking at the, where is it? Objects, effects. Oh, it's in design. So you get the cave brush, which is here, and once again you get the different size brushes. Biggest one is that one, but that's all we'll really need. And because of the fact that we are going to try and maintain this desert theme, we're going to change once again the color. So we're going to change the ground color first of all, and yeah, let's try and get that really pale yellow, almost ancient sand. And then the walls, let's offset the orange a little bit and go quite dark. Do we go like blood red cave walls almost? I don't know how good that'll look. In theory, that sounds good, but let's find out, shall we? Let's go. Just blood red. No, let's go. There we go, like a copper almost. There we go. That's good. Okay, so we've got that now. This functions in a lot similar way to the building tool, as I mentioned, and looks a lot like the river tool as well, the water tool. You draw, you let go. It's that simple. And you can see that from the wall colour and the ground colour, immediately the colour that is that we want. But the great thing is about this is that wherever you draw, effectively wherever your brushstroke is landing is in the interior of the cave, and anything outside of it becomes the walls. So you can naturally see if I do that with that pattern there, that squiggly pattern, that becomes the root of the cave. And as you can imagine, you can come up with some really great stuff, because there's nothing easier really than just drawing a squiggly line, and it just makes it look like a cool cave system. Pretty great. Really good if you want to make a dungeon on the fly. Really good if you realise, oh, I said I was going to run that game tomorrow. I need to draw a dungeon real quick. And then all you need to do is erase, holding Alt, and get rid of all of the ground colour. As soon as you get rid of all the ground colour like that, let go, boom, it's gone. There you go. So, this is the interesting thing, and this is one that I think I do struggle with, and if anyone does use Dungeondraft, perhaps you can give me some advice on this, because it is quite hard to make the cave wall merge into the man-made wall. Usually, it's a bit of trial and error, but it sometimes adds bits into it like that to accommodate. It realises that it has nowhere to go and it's attached to this floor, so it automatically generates a bit of wall there to go into. So I could do this, for example, boom, now it looks like that hole goes off into a cave, but we want this whole section here to be a cave. So if I do that, let's see what happens. Okay, I was talking out my arse because it did it immediately, which looks pretty great. So actually, you round the corner, and what we'll do is we'll actually make a man-made way, and like a structure, a part of the structure that's completely collapsed. So now when the players come through here, they'll be faced with their first choice. They can either continue into the man-made section of the crypt, or they can begin exploring the caves that are collapsed through or have been burrowed there. Okay. So we've got two paths, which I quite like, and that is actually organically creating the dungeon for us. Like us talking about this right here, right now. Us going through the dungeon sort of on a whim to see what's in there has now generated this cool idea. The fact that part of it is this cave complex. But I wonder, what created that cave complex? Was it natural erosion, or was it something far more sinister? We'll have to find out. So we're going to keep doing the man-made tunnel now. First of all, I think so. We've got to try and make it fit logically. Already structurally, this is a bit off, I will say. So maybe it'll look better if I add another thing here. It's not super important, you know. It doesn't always have to be perfect. You don't have to be an architect to make a decent dungeon. But sometimes there are obvious things like that, for example, where why is that chamber just slightly off from the entrance chamber here, for example? You know. I suppose you could do a cool thing there. We said that perhaps that gate was locked. Perhaps there's a secret entrance through this offering hall, this offering place. So if you leave the right thing, maybe a secret door opens. But we won't do that for now. We've already got plenty of work. So what I will do is I will even that up. There we go. So one extra. That looks better already, in my opinion. I don't know. I maybe I'm wrong. And maybe even we can join that up. So rather than actually having two offering chambers, we've got the one offering chamber. And in fact, that's probably more impressive, because then we can line this room here with like a whole row of statues rather than it just be a few bunched up. Maybe. Which I quite like. And then even perhaps there's something here as well. Perhaps one of the biggest statues. Perhaps like something like a centerpiece or something. We can leave that there for now. We'll come back to it. So you see this tool already, there's quite a lot going on, and we haven't really put that much effort into it. Already, without having to do that much, we have the makings of a session. Which is, you know, not bad, not bad. I'm on the Brewdog today, just the one as it's a school night. But an unexpected stream. What was it? Well, I'm just rambling now, aren't I? Let's have a look. So we've got the cave, we got the man-made tunnel. So let's do the man-made tunnel, as I said we would. So, let's see. Maybe. I'm trying to work out the best place it could go. I'm also trying to work out the best place it can go that won't interrupt what I want to do with that cave now. Because we now know that that cave network is going to have to make up a good portion of it. So probably all the way up there is going to be cave. So we go back onto the building tool. And we'll do a corridor. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. A corridor that goes off this way. And we go down. Now, perhaps we'll use this to our advantage. Because it's turning back on itself, we will remember that we will be going into a set of stairs. So let's do that immediately. So I have two abreast set of stairs there, and I will put in the stairs later on. And now let's quickly make up some other rooms, because I am simply doing this just to show you how it works. It's also good to know what kind of encounters we're going to be having, because obviously you want encounters in your dungeon. So obviously, we're going to have an encounter in the caves, I think, because I think we'll discover what has made the caves, which will be super fun. And then we will have, I imagine, some form of undead. Right at the top of the stream, I said that it'll be a zombie of some kind, so a mummy, sorry. So, yeah, let's do that. Let's say it's there's a mummy. And we will do a big chamber here. Okay. So you come down this grand staircase, and as a matter of fact, let's do the whole thing. Why not? So now we've got this really regal opening where, to sort of play into the desert burial things, if we're talking about pharaohs of Egypt, they would have these opulent, vast chambers in which they were buried. I think that's fairly opulent. And then what we can do as well, because that's going to be a staircase, we'll have to remember that's on another level. We will do a staircase that leads off here, so we can do the... that isn't going to work like that, is it? Or it might do. We'll leave that there just to remind us that that's going to be something. I think that's probably the best thing. We'll go back to the cave now. Thankfully, when you go back onto it, it does remember what you were using at the time. And you can preset different colours. So you don't have to keep selecting the same colour. You can sort of like have it there. And that'll save for the map. That will re-save. Or that will reset if you start a new project. But for the same map, it will remain. So same with caves, as I mentioned, with narrow corridors. You want to make sure that you've got clean squares. I get kind of annoyed if you sort of have like, and again, holding Alt and then clicking to delete a section. But if you have that, for example, that's sort of impeding on a character square, which is fine. But there's part of me that kind of wants, if you can go there, you should be able to see basically the whole square. I'm going to do that because I don't like that shape. There we go. So I know I've said that, and and now you'll be like, well, that square isn't full. Okay, as long as it looks vaguely all right. And then it's a very, very careful. You can make the brush smaller, and you can make the brush smaller for the purposes of erasing as well, like precision erasing, which is quite good. But yeah, we'll keep it like that for now. There we go. He says. Great. Rolling the mouse wheel just makes the brush go up a size. I mean, that doesn't look ideal, so we'll undo that and try and make it arc. Nope. Trying to make it arc a little bit. There we go. And then the cool thing about caves, of course, is that they can lead off in different directions. So we can have like a path there, for example. In fact, if I go up to that size there, what I can do is I can draw the rough shape and then minimize or kind of like whittle back the shapes that I want. Looks a bit strange, to say the least. Let's try knocking that back a bit. There we go. And then also the cool thing you can do is you can actually you kind of raise dead in the middle of a cave that you've already been making. So you can do that, for example, and then you've got yourself like a cool like rock pillar just in the center, which I think we can leave. Let's make it a bit broader here. And let's make it a bit more central. So if we're going, that's sort of a 3x3 there almost. We'll get rid of it there. Holding Alt once again. No, not holding Alt because that'll make it bigger. Drawing back in the shape, sorry. And then once again, going into roughly the center there. Alt and just one click. Boom. Click there. That is pretty great. You can find the remains of things being dragged here by whatever created this this area here. So yeah, let's have a quick check of something. I'm not entirely sure we have company at the moment, but if we do, I still need a name for the house, the ancient house that dwells in the desert. Fantasy house of desert warriors. Maybe the desert elves, maybe the desert dwarves. But I want a name! So a name would be useful. I mean, I will come up with one myself, but it would be cool if someone else could suggest one. Let's find out. So once again, I'm trying to open up this space and I'm trying to minimize the space that isn't being used. There we go. So this does take a lot of trial and error, but that I think is passable. If you can comfortably fit your character token in there, then I'm happy. Because if you, I don't know, this part. I'm very particular about this, and there's a fine line between and distressed, shall we say. I think that's alright, isn't it? Maybe we could afford with this being more like a cave tunnel than a big chamber, because we've already got like a big chamber here, haven't we? So instead, why don't we just start hacking into that by erasing sections of it? Whoa, see, that worked out pretty neatly. Let's try that. Oh, yeah, see, that looks cool already, doesn't it? And then what we can do is we can sort of join it all up. So it becomes kind of, I don't know. You know, when we were talking earlier about fighting in single file and stuff, like maybe that could actually be quite a cool encounter with whatever created this tunnel. Perhaps whatever created this tunnel can move incredibly quickly, so can use the interlinked circuits of this cave network to be able to disappear down one exit, because it knows, and as you as the dungeon master know, you can come back around on them from a different direction. So let's in fact join up. So yeah, if they go down this way, the monster can, or the creature, whatever it is, can come around this way. If they go down this way, the monster can come around here and get them. Yeah, I like that. That's actually pretty cool. I think that's all right. I'm quite happy with that shape, actually. And that's actually taken up a nice portion of the map in the corner. And what we've done is that we've kind of quite neatly got two sections of the dungeon, and it's not all samey. Like, don't get me wrong, I do love myself just like classic underground keep or a castle where it's all like just like winding corridors of stone and blazing torches in brackets and the like. But sometimes it is good to mix it up. It is more interesting for the players as well, because as soon as they get around there, they'll be like, oh my god, there's a cave that goes off that way and there is a man-made tunnel that goes off that direction. Which should we go for first? You're giving players decisions without even asking them anything. You're just showing them, look, this is what's in front of you. I can't help but feel we've got a missing opportunity up in this corner as well. So maybe I think we go man-made again. So we'll spring off from this section here, grabbing the wall tool once again, or the building tool. Still got the same settings. Maybe it'd be better if I draw the structure that I want over there first. So let's do something like that. Or do I have a corner? Maybe it goes around a corner. That can be quite intimidating sometimes. Also, once again, we talked about traps before. Quite fun to have traps in very narrow corridors. I personally do love a good trap. So that's, I think it's all right. And we've got a cool shape there. And as long as we have a use for each of these chambers, I think we're doing pretty well. So we know that the large chamber here is the opulent resting place of the mummy. Maybe we can't get into this section without retrieving something or activating something in this portion here. So, okay. What if you have to prove your worth? You have to prove that you are worthy to pray at the sarcophagus of this fallen desert dweller, this desert lord. So up here, So in here is where you come to pray just as a normal person from the public of this house that once dwelt here hundreds of years ago. Then you come in here, and this might be a bit of an exposition room, perhaps, because we like this to be a story, as I mentioned. So maybe we see carvings of what dwells inside. We see carvings of this ancient lord, and we could include some kind of thing saying in the text of that ancient house that you've got to be worthy to get into the main chamber, and to do so is like a test of wit and a test of strength, or something along those lines that has to be achieved. So then you go up into this chamber up here, which we will have to make a little bigger. Maybe we do that. Get rid of that wall here. There we go. I think that'll look cooler. Get rid of that one there. Join that up there. Yeah, that's a bit better, I think. Because then they can enter here, and all of here can be some kind of challenge. Now, whether that be like a riddle, whether that be like I say, a test of intellect, which potion do you drink, which key do you choose, and maybe if they choose the wrong thing, then boom, something erupts out of a tomb. We have said this is a crypt, yet we don't have many places of burial. Obviously, I think the Lord will be surrounded by faithful, those buried with him, some potentially buried alive with him, to make it a bit more macabre. And then maybe the test of strength there is to prove your worth, or prove that you're worthy to go to the art. Perhaps that's what it was. It originated as a test to see if you are worthy to go into the afterlife with the Desert Lord. And that's why it's there. So before you were descended into the chamber, you would first have to face the trial here. And of course, I would likely maybe rework it then. So actually, your test of strength might actually be featured in the chamber in the middle. So we could actually make that chamber bigger. I'm just reluctant to do so because the cave just is shaped perfectly onto that corner of that wall. But yeah, you face the test of strength, and then only then can you open this section to go into this chamber here. And I've got actually a good idea, because we said about there being a second layer, and I've just thought of a cooler idea, so we'll get to that in a second. That, I think I'm happy with the general shape. I think what I might do, just to flavour up the the caves a little bit, we're going to go onto the water tool, and this is a really, really neat little trick that I learned from somewhere on Reddit. Someone came up with this idea. There isn't a way of really doing like pits and holes and stuff. You can import assets that look like holes and things like that, but if you just want like just a sheer black nothingness, it's quite hard to pull off. Until someone actually pointed out to me, or rather Reddit pointed out to me, that you can simply just change the watercolor. And then you basically got yourself just a paintbrush for whatever shade you need. So you change both the deep colour and the shallow colour to just black. Now you got yourself a cool abyss brush. Which I'm not sure if it won't go on to... Oh no, it will. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the whole side of this chamber here has just collapsed. Look at that. See, that already looks like there's just this gaping hole in the floor now. And this is something that I've done in quite a few of the dungeons that I've done in the Knights of the Apocalypse game, and it's something that I will continue to do to this day, just because it just looks cool and it's really effective. You can see right on the edge there, you can see that the water tool, or the abyss tool as I call it, is starting to leak out from behind the wall. So best thing to do is really zoom in, super small brush, hold the Alt key, and then softly draw under it. And actually, while you do see there's a little bit of floor left there, you imagine there might be like a tiny little bit of flooring left there. Not something that you can stand on, but you can see where it's broken away. So if I did that, for instance, look, there's like a shard of floor still there. And even cooler, if I extend the brush a little bit, oh look, a singular, in fact, let's do it so it's done in squares, because naturally the players will be measuring a jump distance. So we work out which squares we want. So that one, for example, we can then use the tool to it's because we're doing opposite shapes now. The deleting is actually the painting. There we go. So that is roughly a square that you can land on. And it's a square's distance from the edge. There you go. And that, you can imagine, is just like a single pillar of rock that still stands. And then that can reach perhaps maybe some inviting looking treasure. There we go. And we'll actually like have it run so it's sort of like the corner is kind of held up by the wall there. He says, forgetting how to use that tool there. There we go. And that actually joins up perfectly. Maybe get rid of that because that jump looks far too easy. There we go. Look at that. So if you want to risk to get something that's perhaps nestled in this corner, you have a little bit of a challenge there. You have to make the jump. And you have to jump onto this, and perhaps this isn't very even. So the adventurers may have to work together. They may have to set up like lines of ropes and stuff, and someone will have to brace and hold as the most nimble of the party perhaps attempts the leap. See, this is me just making encounters on the fly simply by using this tool. I didn't know that there was going to be a skill challenge involved where you had to jump over a big drop, but now there is. And look, I mean, we can put a few more in. We can do that, for example, and another one here maybe. Again, trying to make sure that when we do that, it is the majority of a square. Because, again, when it comes to bringing this into Roll20, you want your tokens to land on squares that will match the grid that's on here. And that's something I'll probably talk about when we go to do a Roll20 stream, if people are curious to watch that. We'll leave it like that for now, though. That looks quite intimidating, to be fair, doesn't it? And I think, as well, that's where we will come to our second floor. Because perhaps we can have some hint here that in the room of exposition, that's what we'll call it, the chamber of exposition will let the players know that this burial chamber was actually built on top of another structure to either mask its existence, or perhaps it's the real one, to hide it from grave robbers, perhaps. And it's actually a cunning ploy, and this is in fact a fake opulent chamber. Everyone thinks that it's going to be this Lord's burial chamber because of how grand it is, when actually the real thing can be found underneath. I like that. We'll go with that. So I'm happy with the overall shape. That is the basic tools of Dungeondraft, like the shaping of that dungeon, pretty much. The other thing I was going to do, another cool thing to do, we're going to change that watercolor again. I think we'll choose sort of like a sinister green kind of color. pale green. There we go. Great. And then we will do the same with the shallow colour. Slightly off green there as well. That'll make a cool. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to zoom into the cave here, just to make it look even more intimidating. Because trust me, when players start seeing this sort of thing, they're gonna just start freaking out. Just with simple touches like this, you're gonna start letting the players feel a real sense of danger. And the water tool is pretty great because it kind of just aha! See, look, it's moving. I don't know if you can see that on the stream. You can sort of see it sort of pulsing a little bit. I didn't imagine it. Anyway, we're going to sort of like give like loose coatings of slime into this cave. There we go. Now, of course, I'm using the water tool for everything but water, but absolutely, you could, of course, use this to have like a rushing river running through your dungeon, waterfall. It could be hidden within a cove. One of the early missions in Knights of the Apocalypse, the campaign, was them infiltrating like a sea cove inhabited by pirates. So there's quite a lot of water there. But yes, thin coatings of slime, which of course can be in itself a danger of this dungeon. Perhaps it's acid, perhaps it's corrosive. That's what acid is. Perhaps it's sticky. Sticky goo that sticks to players, or player characters, which makes it harder to escape when the thing inevitably collapses. See, it's just you just riff, and all the while, if you keep that kind of philosophy going in the back of your mind whilst you're drawing, whilst you're creating, you will come up with some really wicked stuff. See, look at that. Already, that looks like a nauseating cave network that's inhabited by some foul thing. In fact, maybe that foul thing's main chamber will pick as this one here, in the depths of the place. I think we might save dressing the dungeon for another stream. What do you think? I ask to myself. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe because I'd like to do it justice. I hate to rush it, but I am aware that we've already been going for a little while. That looks really great. I'm actually quite pleased with that. Maybe the first sign of goo is only round this corner, and they'll be like, "What is that?" And actually, that's really good because that helps me fill in the little bits of squares that don't make full squares for the tokens. Because trust me, I know I've harped on about it, but it is dead important. Because when it comes to actually bringing that into your game, it does become very important. There we go. Yep. So we'll leave it there then. Now, I'll quickly do a few things to remind myself. I'll address a tiny bit of it because it technically is part of the layer of the dungeon. We're going to look for a set of stairs. Now, this is where we come into the object tools, which is great. You have a tool here that allows you to sort of scatter things, which we'll go over another time. But for the most part, we're selecting objects, and you will see here that the objects are all tagged. And when you bring in assets, like you can see some of my assets that I've imported from 2 Minute Tabletop, which is a company. Bandit camp assets and basic building assets and things like that. But anyway, for the most part now, we just need to use stairs. We need to find a set of stairs. Because that's always going to be there. We've got to think about what we need to bring in here and what we can use. Because things that you want to interact with in the dungeon, I really urge you not to put into Dungeondraft. If there are going to be crates that you want your players to use as a barricade, if there's going to be barrels that they think they're going to be moving, or chests they want to interact with, or tables or anything like that, that you think that they might want to move, don't put it in Dungeondraft. Put it into Roll20. But stairs, however, won't be going anywhere. So we'll have a quick look for some stairs. There we are. The search tool is a bit strange for this, I will say. Like stairs, when I search for them, obviously it's come up with chairs first of all, so you can see why. But then we go for, let's see, we go for a nice set of stairs, set of stone stairs with that nice lining on there. You select that, and then look, you zoom in, control and wheel, and then you can change the layout of the stairs. You can hold Alt and then do the mouse wheel to scale the stairs up, which I think we will do, and we will keep it like that. You can let go of all the buttons and just use the mouse wheel, and it cycles it around like that. And you can see that once again, with the snap tool off, you can put it wherever you want. With the snap tool on, it makes it adhere to the shape of the dungeon, or the shape of the grid, rather. Now, I know what you're going to say. Those don't look like desert steps at all, do they? So, instead, you select sort of like the custom color of the item, because you can change the color of the items as well. Once again, just painting the items, painting your assets is a surefire way of making it look individual. Although for some reason that hasn't done that, so let's see, why hasn't that done that? Let's do that, shall we? What if I place it? Will it work if I place it? No. Oh no, I see why. So only certain, that's right, I should probably talk about that. Only certain of these assets can be changed into a custom colour, and it would actually seem that the steps cannot be changed, which is a shame. But you know what? That doesn't look bad. If anything, that sort of makes them stand out even more, to be honest with you. So should we stick with that set? Let's go with that one. I like the look of that one. Now you will note that there is a layer system for this. I'll talk about very quickly. This is, you kind of like add, and if you're familiar with image manipulation, if you're not, then it's very simple. It's just that you're electing what layer of the image that this is going on. If I wanted this to go below water, if we go back to that that slide, oh no, it's changed the color. Oh, I have to go back and sort that out. Look, it's messed my abyss up. I wonder why that's happened. Anyway, I'll sort that another time. Look, if I've gone below water, look, that you'll then see that that'll place beneath water. If I hit it below, below ground, then it will be behind everything that I've put onto the ground. If I put it above the walls, then I can actually do a staircase built in there. So it looks like the stairs is actually rising out of this section and up onto another bit, if you wanted. But for the most part, with these, we'll keep it on user layer 1, which adheres to most of the dungeon shapes. So what we'll do is, we'll do the staircase there, and then we'll do another one there. It snaps perfectly there. Look at that. We've got a staircase that looms down into the darkness. I am slightly upset about my abyss, I'm not going to lie. What happens if I just do that? Ah, there we go. It fixed it. I'm not sure why that happened, to be honest with you. Well, anyway. Hopefully it stays that way. Okay. we're going to wrap up here shortly. I think dressing the dungeon might be a nice thing to do in another stream. I'm really happy to do another stream. If people are up for it, if people want to watch it, I'd be more than happy to do it, because it is a great tool. I know I've gone on about it. They're not paying me. I'm not sponsored by Dungeondraft or Wonderdraft, anything by Megasploot. But yeah, they do really good stuff. And as you can see, look, I barely spent any time on that. And half the time I wasn't even concentrating. Half the time I was thinking about what I was going to say next on this stream, for example. So when you're just in the zone, you can just smash out that. I could just hit export. You export it as a JPEG or a PNG, drop it into Roll20, and then you've got yourself a dungeon straight away. And there's so much you can do with this. If you want to see examples of what you can do, I'm not saying like I'm like the most amazing at it, but I like to think that I've got pretty good at it. If you check out the ones that are on Knights of the Apocalypse, which you can view either live here on Twitch, or you can go and watch on the YouTube channel, if that's where you are at the moment. If you go on to some of them, like, I'm really quite pleased with them. I think the best one that I've done so far in the campaign might be the there was one set of the Scar, which was the hideout of Savage Doom, a cult, that I was quite pleased with, because I got to do some stuff with the lighting in that as well, which I will talk about another time. And the one that was the convent, which is one of the first I made for the game, actually, which the players took ages to come back round to. I thought they were going to explore it really early, and they actually moved on without exploring the area, and then came back to it much later on, so that was fun. Okay, let's round out by doing what I promised I was going to at the top of the stream. So just Joseph, this is for you. We're going to go onto the layer tool, because we want to see what's beneath the crypt, okay? So to do that, we go on to the level settings, which is this dial here. And we click level settings here. Now we have ground here, which is what this layer is. We want to create a new layer, so we're going to create new level, and we want to clone this level, because what it's going to do is going to make an exact copy of the layer that we've already created. You might wonder why you want to do that. Switch level on creation. Well, we're not going to do that, because I want to show you how we navigate to it. So we sit accept. Great. So it doesn't seem like anything's happened, but as I mentioned at the bottom of the stream, or the top of the stream, sorry, at the bottom of the screen, however, you will see on this tool now, where it just said ground, you click on it, it now says new level. We can change the title of that layer to the sub-tomb, or the nether tomb. The nether tomb. I like that. There we go. And then we can sort of like layer them. So now we've got ground, and then if we want to move down, we move the arrow down to nether tomb. There we go. That's quite satisfying. If we go on to the nether tomb, you'll notice that it's an exact copy of what we've already done. Okay. But now what we're going to do on the nether tomb is to go on the building settings, for example, and we're going to do the thing where we hold Alt and then drag a big square around everything we took so long to create, and it's gone. However, if we select ground, it's just the same. So this is an exact copy of what we have, but we're able to change it. And because I said that that hole is going to be where they can fall down from, that is where we start. And that now becomes the new entrance. So for the second floor, they'll have to scale down there with ropes. or with pulleys, or they'll just jump down. We now get the water brush, make it a big thing there, and we then delete it. And maybe because it's the Nether tomb and is far older, we'll use older materials. So we go on to the building tool, for example, and we'll change the color of the tiles. So now they're going to be like a almost white color, off-white color. There we go. In fact, we'll change them completely. We'll make them look really surreal. No, not that surreal. That looks weird. But if we do that, for example, and we draw that. Wow! So where they land now, we'll put with when we come to dress the tomb. In fact, I'll make a little thing here to show where they will be when they enter. They'll be in that 3x3 square. That's where they'll land. So that's how we remind ourselves where it is. They'll sort of land along there. We'll do a bit there as well. Because anytime we want to compare what was above, we just do that. Oh, okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So about 6 along then in that case. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we are. So now that looks like, yeah, the corner that has been blasted away. And you could look up. And that's the entrance, the new entrance. And we can delete all of this, and there you go. You've got like a whole different level. And then all you need to do when you come to putting this into Roll20 is that this is just a different instance of the map. So the moment they go down there, you just grab the player icon. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Roll20, but you grab the player icon and drag it to the next map. It'll load, and then they'll be here now instead. And the players will be able to see this level instead of the one above. And the adventure continues. And I think that's quite a nice spot to say the adventure will continue. I've actually really enjoyed talking about this, and thankfully it's been a bit of a relief that the stream has survived. Hopefully it's been okay. Hopefully the quality's been okay. I do understand that the the layout doesn't look particularly nice. I will definitely work on that, as I sort of did throw it together very, very quickly. That's just a sort of like on a whim. I decided tonight, when I'm done everything I need to do today, I'm going to jump online. I'm going to stream how to make a dungeon in Dungeondraft. And this is step 1. We've kind of come up with the shape, and yeah, we've almost also started a second dungeon that exists beneath the one above, which is great because it just shows like now we've got like a whole adventure unfolding, like what is going on in this desert dungeon. And because we'll be carrying this over to the next stream, if people watch this and you would like to have your input included, yeah, I think some viewers dropped out. So if anyone did want to name the house, the ancient house that was used, the ancient house that once dwelled here, or at least buried their dead here, then let me know. Give me some ideas, and I will include it in the next stream. Whoever comes up with the coolest stuff, I will include. And yeah, we'll build it together. So that just leaves me to say thank you. Thank you very much, Never Sleep 312, for dropping by and saying hello. And thank you very much, Just Joseph, for dropping by and saying hello too. Really glad you dropped by and found it useful, hopefully. And for any of those watching, I hope you found it interesting too. And are not tired of me shilling for for Megasploot. It is really worth it, considering how cheap the software is as well. There's so much that you can do with it in no time at all. So that just leaves me to say thank you ever so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a like. If you'd like to see more like it, then give me a subscribe. I have 42 followers. I would really like to get to 50 followers on Twitch. So if you can find it in your heart, give me a follow. I'd really, really appreciate it. Once we get to 50, we will be affiliated with the Lords of Twitch. and then our growth will continue forever and ever. I'd really appreciate that. It would mean a lot. So yeah, thank you ever so much for watching. Hope all of your performances are up to standard. And I'm gonna hit this. Cheers, guys. Thanks.